girl was fishing by the lake, not realizing that the fish hook just happened to hook a passing man. She twisted her head in confusion, but was instantly shocked and covered her mouth. It turned out that the man was the king of their country. The girl was at a loss for words. At this time, the king is looking at the girl. The heart cannot help but love at first sight for the girl. The girl came to the king and apologized for her behavior while trying to remove the fish hook in a hurry. Looking at the girl's flustered appearance, the king couldn't help but feel very cute. In order to spend more time with the girl, he asked his men to go back to the palace first, and then invited the girl to walk back with him. The girl heard immediately excitedly agreed, just because her heart for the young handsome king is also full of good feelings. At this time the king looked at the fishing rod in his hand, couldn't help but ask curiously.
Sie wenigstens was gefangen damit?
Ja, Sie Majestät.
The king froze for a moment after hearing this, and then laughed out loud. It turned out that as the lord of a country, everyone was usually respectful to him, and the girl was the first person who dared to joke with him. This made the girl's favor in his heart become stronger and stronger. The girl was also captured by the easygoing and courteous king. They strolled on the lush green grass when the warm sunshine poured down, and the two faces were full of sweet and happy smiles. Without realizing it, the time was already approaching noon. Because there are still many important things need to deal with, the king can only reluctantly say goodbye to the girl. Before parting, he once again issued an invitation to the girl, asking her to meet at 5 p.m. at the bridge. The girl at once readily agreed. By the time she returned home, Sissy's mind was still filled with the wonderful encounter she had just had with the king. She placed her hand over her heart and felt it pounding. She knew he was hopelessly in love. It wasn't even 5 p.m. yet, and she couldn't wait to get to the bridge. She couldn't wait a minute longer. And Franz came here as soon as he had finished his work. In order to prevent others from disturbing the date between the two, Franz ordered his men to wait in place and not to approach the two without any important matters. After saying that, he hurriedly came in front of Shishi, and the two who saw each other again couldn't help but have a bright smile at the corner of their mouths. They leisurely traveled through the woods, feeling the vibrancy of nature as well as breathing in the fresh air. A gentle breeze blew by, and the insects and birds in the forest sang happily. Everything looked so vibrant.
Wenn du mal Kummer oder Sorgen haben solltest im Leben, dann geh wie jetzt mit offenen Augen durch den Wald. In jedem Baum, in jedem Strauch, in jeder Blume und in jedem Tier wird dir die Allmacht Gottes zum Bewusstsein kommen und dir Trost und Kraft geben.
Seeing that Sisi had such insights and perceptions that far exceeded those of ordinary people, Franz's heart, in addition to liking it, had another appreciation for Sisi. Perhaps because he wanted to show off in front of his beloved, Franz was ready to show off his shooting skill. However, just when he was ready to hunt, Sisi deliberately made a noise. The wild deer senses the danger in advance and slips away. Sisai's purpose was to see the deer's life end. Franz was instantly impressed by Sisai's kindness. His feelings for Sisai rocketed even faster. They came to a fallen tree and prepared to take a rest. Sisai took out a musical instrument from the bag she was carrying and played a beautiful piece of music for Franz. At this moment, Franz thought that there was no better girl in the world than Sisai. Not only was she beautiful and good-natured, but she was also smart, kind, and multi-talented. If you can be with such a girl as Sisai, it is simply the gift of God. As a result, he did not expect Sisi all the hobbies surprisingly consistent with him. Sisi's favorite sport was horseback riding, her favorite flower was red roses, and her favorite food was apple pie. And all of these were likewise favored by Franz. Franz felt for a moment that the two were simply destined for each other, because not only did they have a beautiful encounter under the pull of fate, but also in the destiny to have similar hobbies, and the two of them communicate with each other in the same channel. All this proves that they are the one waiting for each other. But thinking about it, Franz's mood suddenly became lost. It turned out that his mother had already appointed a fiancé for him, and would announce it at the palace banquet tonight. And he actually didn't love the other party, and had never even met them. But for the sake of the country's interests, he could only choose to marry the other party. And when she heard that Franz was about to get married, Sisi's heart was suddenly filled with grief. How she wished that the person who married Franz was her, but she realized that this had become a distant hope. But perhaps it was because she didn't want to die. She didn't stop herself from asking Franz what his fiancé's name was. As a result, she never thought that the person who was going to marry Franz was her sister. She was instantly dumbfounded, and finally died completely. If it was someone else, she might still want to fight for it despite everything. But she really couldn't compete with her own sister for a man. However, just as her brain was in disarray, Franz suddenly and boldly confessed to her.
Ich glaube, man könnte sie sehr lieb haben. Nein. Man müsste sie sehr lieb haben.
Franz asked her to accompany him back to see his mother later, saying that he would surely convince her to agree to the two of them being together. As a result, Sisi heard it, but fled the place in a panic of fear. Why would she not want to be with Franz? But the existence of her sister is an impassable barrier between the two. Looking at the fleeing Sisi, Franz desperately shouted behind her, but Sisi's footsteps did not stop for a moment. Franz's heart was instantly filled with loss and sadness. He is obviously the head of a country, can decide the fate of many people, but at this moment he cannot keep his love. On the other hand, Sisi just returned home and saw her sister dressed up and ready to attend the palace banquet tonight. Looking at her sister, who was full of happiness, Sisi's heart was as painful as a pinch. However, she still resisted the urge to cry and sent her sister her most sincere blessings. Afterwards, she fled and left the place. She was afraid that if she was 1 second later, her tears would pour down uncontrollably. As it turned out, her mom asked her to join her at the banquet in the evening as well. She wanted to refuse, but her mom's attitude was very strong. Forced to do so, she had no choice but to follow her mom to the palace to attend the banquet. The moment he saw Sisai, Franz froze in place. He never thought that Shishi would be his fiancée's sister. For a time, his mood was incredibly complicated. When it was time to eat, he didn't care about his fiancée next to him in the slightest, his eyes staring straight at Shishi. And in his eyes was a completely unhidden love for Shishi. Looking at his fiery gaze, Shishi was at a loss for words. In her heart, however, she vaguely felt a little happy. At the ball at the end of the meal, the young count took the initiative to invite Sisai to dance with him. Out of politeness, Sisi did not refuse. Seeing this scene, Franz could not help but be jealous. Sisai hurriedly excused herself as not feeling well and went to the lounge alone. Franz immediately followed and asked Sisai if the reason why she ran away in the afternoon was because the person she was going to marry was her sister. Sisai did not speak, but Franz already knew the answer from her expression. So once again he confessed his love to Sisi with a face full of affection. And when Sisi heard this, she instantly panicked and refused. She cannot be so selfish to hurt her sister, however Franz is not willing to give up.
Trotzdem, Sisi, wäre ich glücklich, eine Frau neben mir zu haben, wie du es bist.
But no matter how he said, Shishi still refused to let go. Just when the two were at a standstill, Franz's mother came over, ready to announce his marriage to Sisai's sister now. Franz, instantly anxious, alone pulled his mother to a deserted place. Then he confessed that the person he liked was Sisai, and even more firmly said that he would not marry Sisai.
Im schlechten Sinn.
Im besten Sinn, Mama. Sie ist die Anmut selbst. Ihr Charme ist von einer Herzlichkeit, die ich überhaupt noch nie erlebt habe. Sie ist ein Schatz. Ich werde mir diesen Schatz von niemandem wegnehmen lassen. Ein Entschluss steht fest. Ich heirate Sisi oder keine.
The mother was instantly infuriated, but she couldn't change what her son had recognized. She had no choice but to find Shishi, and then began to teach Shishi the most basic etiquette, so as not to make a fool of herself when the marriage is announced and affect the face of the royal family. But Shishi, who has always been accustomed to freedom, simply cannot accept the so-called rules and regulations. Plus, she didn't want to take away the happiness belonging to her sister, so she directly grabbed the door and left. However, just as she was about to leave, she was pulled by her sister and asked where she was going. She was just about to explain when Franz suddenly walked slowly with flowers in his hands. When her sister saw it, she instantly looked happy, only for Franz to walk directly in front of Shishi in the next second. The smile on her sister's face instantly disappeared, and Sisi didn't know what to do for a moment. She didn't want to hurt her sister, yet she also knew that if she refused Franz now, it would cause Franz's face to fall into disrepute. After hesitating for a moment, she finally accepted the flowers in Franz's hand. When she came to the balcony to watch the fireworks, she painfully questioned Franz why he did this privately without her permission. Franz says if you miss this opportunity, then you may never say yes for the rest of your life. And I don't want to miss you, I just want to spend my life with you. But in spite of this, Sisi was not happy, because she knew that the price for the two of them to be together was that her sister would be hurt. And she and her sister have been very close since childhood. She really does not know how to face her sister. Sisi has been immersed in the pain. Her mother hurried to comfort her, saying that all this is not her fault, let her not blame herself. But Sisai's mood still did not get better. It wasn't until the day before she and Franz got married that her sister finally found her and told her she didn't blame her, saying that it was only destiny for her and Franz to be together, and that the two would always be as they were before, and then gave her her sincerest blessing. At this moment, Sisi couldn't help but cry. These days, she had been living in pain and suffering, feeling that she was the one who stole her sister's happiness, so she was filled with guilt. And now that she had gotten her sister's forgiveness, she was finally able to let it go. The next day, she wore a white wedding dress, and then married Franz with the blessing of the whole country. Sometimes love is like that. It takes some fate and some courage. I hope each of us can have Franz's firmness and persistence when it comes to love.